My fault. I said New Vegas review when in all seriousness, it was going to be a Fallout 4 review. New Vegas soon though. Back to the topic. Fallout 4 is the Fallout that got me into Fallout, the game I've held in higher regard. Thing is, I haven't played this game since it came out. Damn. So, will it be like the previous video where I walk out of it thinking this is a peak experience with some tweaks that can be made, or the opposite? By the end of the video, you guys will know. Boston, man.
Fuck Boston.
Sorry, that was the Texan in me. Hater aside, Boston's an interesting place to explore, and it is different from the previous wastelands like Washington, D.C. and New Vegas. It actually looks like 200 years have passed on this wasteland, the trees, the grass, almost like nature is retaking its place. In all previous Fallouts, you'll be told X amount of years happened and it'll still be looking like the Sahara Desert out there. Whereas Boston got grass swamps. It's not a huge change, but for the nitpicker in me, it definitely satisfies me. Another improvement they made was the gameplay. The gameplay in this game has improved in some aspects and declined in others. I'm gonna talk about the good for now. For one, you have a sprint button. I'm playing. The gameplay is a lot smoother and more akin to a first-person shooter than the previous Fallouts. I will tell you, jumping from 3 and New Vegas to 4 felt weird at first because movement in 4 feels a lot heavier for some odd reason. Maybe it's just me, but yeah. You can also melee enemies with a weapon in hand that will not help you at all or help you. Another thing is, rather than being a stat that you don't care about, radiation actually takes away from your health, which is okay, I guess. Now, I am about to go with a crazy hot take, but I feel like this is the best aspect of Fallout 4. Crazy, but this is the one thing I've seen no one say anything bad about.
I've gotten word about a settlement.
Now, I haven't dabbled in enough in the settlement territory, and the reason is that to really have fun with the settlement system, it's like playing Warframe, and what I mean by that is you borderline need a second life to actually have some fun. And I do not have a second life, to say the least. I can respect the fact that this is a fun system with the stuff I did in the settlement territory, and maybe I might do some more with it, but for now, I have more games to review, so it'll be a minute. Crafting is another thing that has been improved greatly. A complaint I had from the previous Fallouts is that armor repair was way too costly. Fallout 4 takes care of this by giving you a means to repair power armor yourself. I prayed for moments like this. I don't understand why I had the cower in fear of wearing a cool set of armor in the previous games when you guys had ideas like this cooking.
How the fuck would you show me something if I couldn't have it then?
You're telling me that you guys watch us spend 20,000 caps on a piece of armor to get repaired, when all along you could have just given us a way to restore it ourselves? You can also add new things like cool paints, modifications, thermal plating, cool flashlights, but that's enough about power armor. There is another thing I have to add, is that weapons also don't break in this game. Thank God. Early in Fallout games previous, you know, when you weren't just bending the wasteland to your will and the opposite was happening, my combat shotguns and laser rifles broke, and it took eons before I could find another. It's not the hugest change, but it makes the ride in Fallout 4 smoother because of this. And if you want to pimp out your weapons, you absolutely can by adding all sorts of modifications, and you can completely change your weapon type by doing this. Let's say that's not your lane though, and you want to be Walter White from Breaking Bad. You can cook all sorts of concoctions and even make your own stim packs. I didn't mess with this all that often, but it was a cool addition. But for people who haven't played Fallout 4 at all, in the beginning, the cooking station will be your friend. There's not much I can say about this because it's kind of like Dwight Howard in the second stint with the Lakers. You won't really need it as much because you'll probably find a lot of stim packs like you find Rad-X. Plus, there are perks that automatically regenerate your health. That being said though, the amount of effort that Bethesda put to deepen the gameplay even more doesn't go unnoticed for me. Another thing that wouldn't go unnoticed for me is there's a bunch of callbacks to Fallout 3, and some characters from that game even reappear in this game, which is cool, as some of them make the occasional Fallout 3 quote. However, that is the only connectivity you will get. And now, it is time to talk about the bad. I'm not the first nor the last to say this, but the main story is forgettable. And I couldn't quite figure out why I felt that way until I found a post that perfectly explained it. And the one thing about the main stories that made them great is that the connective tissue is lacking. A bunch of side quests or even small actions you did in previous Fallout stories were felt throughout every faction, through every person. Small sprinkles of dialogue acknowledging the action that were made the main quest better. Without that connective tissue, the main story has nothing to make it seem grander, making this main story less grand, less impactful, less interesting. It seems more like a self-contained story, and while it might work for other stories, the reason this main story can't live without it is the main story itself isn't that interesting. Now, sure, you can make the claim about the previous Fallouts that their story isn't that interesting, but I would disagree. The important part of each Fallout game is that the connective tissue that tells us our players' actions are felt throughout the wasteland, making us feel more immersed in the story. But Fallout 4 doesn't have that at all. In fact, I would go as far to say the other thing that this game lacks is The Institute just isn't a strong villain. There's not a lot off the top of my head that makes the name stand alone with the series' stronger villains, the Enclave, Legion, and in some capacity the DLC villains. They claim they are the best hope for humanity, but you never see any evidence of this. Only evidence for the opposite, employing Kellogg, creating the FEV, murders, kidnaps. This is not the best hope for humanity. Besides their claims, their forgetfulness to me is more on the fact that in their faction as a whole, you would think in a world like Fallout where Deathclaws and Mirelurks exist, that the most advanced faction could only muster to create robots similar to iRobot, or that the only color they wear is plain white. The only thing I could really sympathize with would be Sean. But even that isn't enough. Side quests feel soulless in this game. They have been reduced to Assassin's Creed-like missions where you retrieve one thing or clear an outpost, no in between. And the slightly interesting quests are few and far between. If you were to ask me which quest I can remember, I would tell you the Enclave one. And that's because none of these side quests really have any depth. I can name a bunch from Fallout 3 and New Vegas, but 4 just doesn't have any original quests. By the time I was done with the main story, I wasn't bothered to play the other side quests really. And side quests are really integral to Fallout as a series, so to see something like this fall flat is sad. One thing I couldn't really stand to look at in this game was the perk chart, as I expressed in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, were perfect, and I felt you really didn't need to do anything with them, but the people in Fallout 4 didn't agree. Instead, ripping the previous system and putting in its place this. This chart at first glance is just cluttered, difficult to understand, and doesn't offer any insight into the next perk you could obtain. When in Fallout 3, they show you the next perk you can obtain. Thankfully, they learned from this mistake and made it a little better in 76. This game is littered with bugs. Like, the bugs in this game are painfully noticeable in 2024. It started with Dogmeat getting stuck in the door, to me getting stuck trying to hack a terminal or getting a suit of power armor. Even a vertibird making me have to reset the game numerous times, and at some point I just got so fed up because all I wanted to do was complete this game. But the bugs just made it so not fun, and some of the bugs are fun, but then some of them just downright break the game. Now, I just want to know who made this VAD system. I just want to know. Like, why is my aim equivalent to a stormtrooper? Come on. Now that we're done, I'm just going to go and name a few nitpicks that I think just aren't necessary. The button mapping in this game is a little uncomfortable, but you can just fix this with the keybinds. And Jesus Christ, why do the loading screens take so long? Okay, that is it for the nitpicks. I actually didn't have that many. This game is, in one word, confusing. One step forward, one step backward, enjoyable at times, deplorable at times. With simple tweaks, this game could be amazing. In a perfect world, that happens. Fallout 4 is confusing, though I don't hate it, and I had some fun, and I had some headache. I still think this game is fun in comparison to others, though. This game doesn't stand all that well. This concludes the Fallout 4 review. Peace.